to our webinar Myth versus Reality Marketing Insights for Health Practices.
Hi everyone, I'm Fiona. I head up Zanda's marketing and communications team, so we thought it would be good for me to join in on this one. So I've previously worked as a business consultant and have founded and been involved with quite a lot of different technology type businesses, mostly with helping small and medium businesses become more efficient and operate more smoothly. And yeah, most of my career has been in marketing. So yeah, this is a passion topic for me, definitely.
Very good. And I'm Damien. So I'm one of the co-founders here at Zanda and head of customer success. I'm also a registered psychologist, and in the past, the background how I ended up in this space, my wife and I co-founded a psychology group practice that grew to be quite large, and identifying the needs and the pain points led to, or of running private practices led to creation of Zanda, and also now a best-selling author on practice management, which is new and exciting thing that we released recently.
Absolutely. So today's webinar, what we're going to do is really cover some common marketing myths. We've got 4 marketing myths that we're going to go through, and then the corresponding realities of those myths. And then towards the end, we're going to get to some tips for leveling up your marketing, which will be much more practical, that you can take out and actually start using and implementing in your practices. So that's just a bit of an overview of where we're going. And yeah, so just to dive straight in, the first myth that we have is that referral sources already have established relationships with other practitioners. And if your practice relies on referrals, this is a really important one for you. It's easy to think that the GPs or other referral sources in your area already have their preferred places to send referrals, and it's very easy to have a bit of imposter syndrome, feel intimidated, especially if you're new to private practice or new to the area. So how you break in, or it can seem like you have to kind of break in and become one of those preferred practitioners. So Damien, how did you and Beck, when you had your practice, how did you approach developing relationships with referral sources?
Well, first of all, I can certainly relate to all the things that you just mentioned. You do feel like a bit of an outsider, that imposter syndrome. Everyone else knows what they're doing, and I'm new, and et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that there are always opportunities in my view anyway, there's always opportunities to sort of enter a market. There's always gaps, and patients have preferences of who they'd like to see, and so do referral sources as well, of who they like to sort of send people to. So often we kind of make the mistake of just assuming that everyone's already got these sort of tight relationships. But when we started, we did a few things, but we really got clear on sort of what we were about, and what we were sort of offering. And we tried a bunch of different things, but reaching out directly to GP practices and other health practitioners and said, hey, this is what we are all about. And we found that the response was way better than what we sort of had anticipated. And even people warned us like, oh, this market's already saturated. There's no room for new practices. And we were sure able to sort of, prove that wrong. But really, GPs are often, and I say GPs because they're often the core referral source, but it can be other health practitioners and other people that send business your way. They're often, and always looking for getting the right fit, and matching patients with the right people to refer to. And so that means they're always on the lookout, and they're happy to kind of, get new people on their list that they can refer to, because it opens up what they're able to offer. I think the other thing, is really sort of focusing on, understanding that differentiating factor. So not being too caught up in the competition, and I'd say don't get too caught up in pricing and all that sort of stuff. Really focus on what makes you different, what you can offer to patients and to potential referral sources. So how you can solve a problem, for them. And to keep in mind that the referral lists so you think of all the GPs, the GP population itself is not static, right? So there's people moving in and out of your area and in and out of new graduates that get into private practice in the GP or medical or other allied health professionals that might refer. That's fine. They're changing all the time in the environment, and therefore there's always new people to kind of talk to, and to talk about what you can offer them and how you can help with their practices.
And just having alternatives. They might have patients that come back and say, well, that didn't wasn't a great match for me. Who else have you got? So,
Absolutely.
just being top of mind when those opportunities do come along, I guess.
And I've had doctors tell me directly that they like supporting new practices for exactly that reason
Hmm.
that you mentioned. They like to have a
Yeah.
diverse range, and new practice comes along, and they think, let's test them out. We'll send them a few patients. We'll see see what the feedback's like, and away you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was myth number one. And myth number two we have is all about social media, and that social media is, the only way to really promote a practice. And I guess our view is that social media is definitely one way of marketing a health practice, and it definitely can be very effective. And we've probably all seen this research that building a social media community can really improve brand awareness and trust and loyalty and all of those types of things. And I guess one thing to bear in mind here about social media is that it is very visible, especially to us. Like if you're in a certain type of health profession, your algorithm on your own social media is probably tuned in so that you are seeing all of the local practices that are quite similar to you. It's quite likely that you are. So you've got a heightened awareness of anyone that is doing very well in this space, and so that's kind of skewing the realities of things. But I guess there are a couple of things to be aware of with social media, or just be not beware of, but be aware of, and that is that it's much harder than it looks, because the algorithms these days make organic visibility, as in not paid visibility, very difficult across most of the social media practices platforms. It's really difficult to get a lot of traction, and so most of the time, even if you had an audience of 1,000 people on a certain platform, chances are anything you post is only going to be shown to decrease a tiny sort of proportion of those people. Of course, paid social media is another story. But then the other part of it is that the effort that social media requires is significant. It can, we all know, if we post something about our own personal lives or whatever, it's quite easy to just, upload a photo, put something, and then press send. But to get the messaging right for your business, and something that might be a bit nuanced and you're not wanting to be taken the wrong way, it can be quite difficult. And of course, some people are very natural at this, and that's great for them. But this is, I guess, something we wanted to raise as a myth, because it's definitely not the only way of promoting a health practice. So, Damien, I guess what are your thoughts on this? Did you need a
Yeah.
huge social media following for yourself?
No, not at all. And I think this is one of the sort of things that we look at, sort of the reality of this. Social media, as you said, can work amazingly well, right? If you're good at it, if you like it, if it resonates with sort of, how you are. And I know there's always a chicken and egg thing about you get good at things by doing things, right? But
Mm-hmm.
um, there's it is, like you said, it is hard to kind of get it right. And if you're not someone that kind of enjoys that, or it's not a skill that you naturally want to develop, so if you're just doing it, I guess that's really the point that we're trying to make here, is that if you're just doing it because someone says it's the only way, right, of being successful, then it's unlikely that you're going to maintain it. It's unlikely that it's something that's going to work for you. So it's one of those things that's a double-edged sword here. So it can work extremely well if you enjoy it, if it resonates, and it's sort of where your natural energy and interest goes. But it does that you do not need it. And I know this is a little controversial, because there are some people out there preaching that you must have big social media followings. You definitely don't. And in fact, if you just think about it logically, most private practices do not have large social media followings, and most private practices are not getting their core referrals and never have from social media. So the takeaway message here is, hey, awesome. If you love doing it, go for it. But if it's not you and you don't want to make it you, like you don't want to make it a skill you develop, There are plenty of other ways, and we'll actually touch on some of those things a little bit later on. The other thing I just want to quickly say on that point also is coming back to authenticity. If you are going to give social media a go, you know, stick with authenticity and, you know, posting content that resonates with you, because it's easier to maintain, and also audiences detect that pretty quickly. All right,
Yeah.
let's jump forward to
Definitely. And that's a bit of a
myth
theme,
three.
really, that authenticity. And myth number 3 is that, you know, you're either a great salesperson or you're not. And, you know, whether you call it sales or marketing or promotion or business development, you know, there can be a lot of myths and cliches surrounding the type of person or the type of skill set you need to do that well. We all have perceptions of what sales looks like or what a salesperson looks like. And most of us in these types of industries kind of want to stay far away from those stereotypes. But you know, there are lots of ways to put yourself out there and get noticed. And those kind of cliche ways are definitely not the only ways. And again, it's easy to compare yourself to the most prominent promoters out there in your industry who are good at that, who do have that sort of type of, you know, very outgoing personality or skills, sales sort of skills. But again, that's them doing them, and what we need to do is find our own style and our own authentic ways of operating, you know, to get results while still being true to ourselves. So I guess the reality to this myth, Damien, let's set us straight.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think the reality is, like, you attract the aligned type of people. So that type of person that is really a very out there kind of salesperson is going to attract people that make sense for them, right? So, but again, by comparing yourself, it's not, you know, it's not a very healthy thing to do, and you're really going to undersell yourself. When it comes to putting yourself out there, I think we've got a bit of a nuanced message here, because anything new that you do feels a little uncomfortable, right? So we can't sort of define our reality of I'm only going to do things I'm comfortable with, because we're never going to grow and move forward, right? So just because something is uncomfortable is not in itself a sign that it's sort of not the right fit. But I would argue that, you know, you sort of focus on what's sort of important to you and authentic to you and the way that you communicate. For me, as an example, I really am not naturally great at social media. Even when I've tried it, it just doesn't, personally or professionally, doesn't resonate. But I do like talking to people. I do like communicating. So in our practice, there were different things that we did, but going out and talking to people directly and doing live presentations and things like that, you know, still, you know, I could feel very uncomfortable about it, right? But it was a skill I wanted to practice and could get better at, and it resonated, you know, more with me. So it's not, it is going to feel uncomfortable. It's not necessarily a sign, but don't get an idea in your mind that you need to be like a salesperson, or, like you said, a certain type of way of, you know, expressing your views, or expressing what you can offer. So end of the day, we do need to be communicating, but we want to do it in a format that works best, I think, for the individual. And then it's like anything, you know, I touched on before, the energy goes and it flows to those areas that naturally resonate, you know, with you and that you're interested in. And so it's a lot easier to do stuff that that feels right to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm the similar, like, I guess I would say for me, I lean towards being much more introverted than extroverted. And I guess across my career, I've sort of come to the conclusion that it all comes down to being able to market anything, comes down to having a real belief in something. You know, I really have to truly believe that what I am promoting or marketing or, you know, selling is truly beneficial to the audience or person I'm talking to. You know, I sort of have to feel that they will be better off for having this, and it's almost to the extent that it's really my responsibility to share it in order to
Mhm.
help people. I think it's almost selfish to be keeping whatever it is to myself.
Yeah.
And the ways that I do that is usually, you know, the ways I think about that is usually through, you know, making people aware of something, and then the education. If I can really sort of teach people about what it is and share my passion and enthusiasm for something, then, you know, it's not selling. And I don't really think of it as selling or marketing, really. It's just about that sharing. So again, the modality or the channel is sort of you and sort of your natural inclinations. But yeah, that's sort of the way I think about it marketing.
Yeah, and I think that tracks perfectly well with practitioners that if they're, like you say, almost have a responsibility to share. Again, back to authenticity, the things that they really feel strongly about. You're sharing that. If you just think of marketing and sales like sharing that, right? That's all it is. And that could be really niche as well. No problem. Like sharing that with
Mm-hmm.
the whatever audience makes sense to you. That will sell whatever it is that your practice does, because people will relate to that. Okay,
Totally.
let's have a look at myth number
Then
4. What's this one about?
yeah, this is about the marketing needs a lot of money, or marketing's going to eat up your budget. And let's face it, who's got extra money lying around that they're just wanting to spend on marketing? And there's no doubt marketing can be expensive, advertising can be very expensive, and it's very, very easy to spend a lot of money very quickly. But it certainly doesn't have to be like that. And we'll get into some low cost and no cost ideas towards the end of this. But also, marketing really should be seen as part of the operating costs that should be taken into account when setting pricing and when budgeting for the business. And so no, but marketing doesn't need to be expensive, but it should be a small budget that you can put aside for the purpose of growing the business. So I guess I'd be interested, Damien, for you to sort of share your experience with and views on marketing spend too.
Yeah, I think if we look at the sort of the reality here, you can successfully market your business almost for free. Most of the things that you do are so low cost and so impactful. It's great. I would, just to pick up on the point about budget first. I think that really businesses should have that budget. I really agree with that. And in our practice, as we grew it, we did have money that we would think about in terms of a budget for marketing. I used to view it that if we ever got in trouble with referrers, so we weren't getting enough referrals coming through to support the business, I used to always like to think we've got enough money sitting there to sort of market our way out of that. So if we needed to do some paid advertising and do things to boost it up, then having that money sitting there was helpful. We did do that at the time, especially as we were growing quickly. But most of the things you really you don't need. A couple of things to really look out for, I think, and I've made some of these mistakes myself personally, so I can speak from experience here. But definitely, there's a lot of people out there that will sell you marketing services, and often it's like paid Google advertising, Facebook advertising, Insta type advertising, and they'll sign you up to expensive plans to and minimum spend commitments. And most of the time, my experience with those agencies, and I've worked with them in both in a practice and also with Zanda, but usually is there a waste of money, and they can actually chew up your budget extremely quickly. So avoid those, I think, unless you really have a special relationship and someone perhaps individually or personally that can do it and help. Most of the big agencies, I think, are a disaster, just to be quite frank about it. So I think we need to be mindful of that. If you're still in early stages of building your practice, then you typically have a bit more time because you don't have your books full. So actually doing things that are really low cost, you're often the best spokesperson for your business. So
Mm-hmm.
again, like not hiring a sort of external, pay per click kind of expert. You don't actually need to go and hire a marketing expert either. You can actually just, as we're talking about, be authentic, get your message out there in whatever format makes sense to you. But by refining your message and going out and talking to people about what you care about, that that's what speaks volumes and what tends to get the biggest results. So doing very simple things, like sending out GP letters and doing talks and visiting businesses or visiting sporting clubs or whatever it might be your thing. That has a massive sort of impact. The other thing about the reality of marketing too, and this actually applies even if you are doing social media stuff, but most marketing takes a little bit before it becomes effective, right? So you don't always get like same day results. So I think it's a little bit about kind of being patient and keeping the core message about your being authentic and what you care about. Then over time that will start to have and resonate, and you'll get usually a better return as time sort of goes on, because people hear the same message and they start to sort of connect with it, and they start to remember you. So a little bit of patience, I think, is required in this space.
Yeah, and most marketing activities all work together too. It's usually not one thing on its own. It's usually a combination. Oh, I saw you here, and then someone else mentioned here, and then you popped up there. So that's what we find, and it's what I know from my own personal life as well. It's kind of a multi-pronged approach. So the more different things you can do often can work well together too.
Yeah. Repeating the
Um,
same message, I think, is it can feel
exactly.
really monotonous to you as the speaker because you think, oh, I've said this before, right? But it takes so many re-exposures. Like you think about political, not that we necessarily want to measure ourselves against or model ourselves against political marketing, but when you see like how repetitive political messages, right? And why is that? It's because they know you need multiple exposures
Yeah.
before we
That is,
actually, as can take something in.
yeah. They decide on a message and then keep going with it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's jump into
Yeah.
tips.
Exactly. And that actually does lead into this one. So, well, the first tip we have is to redefine what marketing actually means to you. So, I guess it's really about sort of questioning the stories that you have been telling yourself about marketing, and, asking yourself what underlying beliefs you have that about marketing that might be uncomfortable, or whether it's inauthentic or it's just not your thing to do marketing. And those types of things are probably going to be holding you back, right? So I think that the best thing to do is to almost write a new definition. Whether you literally write it, it might be a good idea, but it could be something, just to reframe what marketing means to you. Like, for me, it's about, I think I said before, it's sharing your enthusiasm for something you're passionate about. But you might actually come up with something that's almost more particular to your practice. Like, the more we communicate and share our knowledge, the more people we can help. Or maybe it's about your profession or your practice. Like, my practice changes lives, and, let's let more people know so that we can have more impact. Those types of things that really make it mean something to you and put it in a frame that is meaningful for what you're going to do, what you're doing, and what's going to be motivating for you too. Now, if you move on to number two, Damien.
So, yeah, I think this is around clarifying sort of what makes you memorable and what kind of stands out. So, I think, and this kind of again, you'll hear this theme over and over about authenticity, and but it's because that is the driving force of what makes you you and your practice you. And so, thinking about like what do referrers or patients, what do they consistently appreciate about you or about your team? And try something out like listing, three or three or five things, whatever. It doesn't need to be precise, but just list out some things that are really do represent you and what you offer. So, like in our practice, we were really big on giving practical strategies for people that help them in whatever issues that they were experiencing, and we were really focused on that practical strategies. And so that we would have that as a core message all the way through. And we also were really focused on demystifying psychology. So we would, again, it ties to practical, but we would try and not use too much industry specific language. We try and make it really kind of accessible. That was our thing. I'm not in any way suggesting that should be anyone else's, but finding those sort of 3 to 5 things that make you or your practice stand out and people appreciate, then use them to update things that wherever you're communicating. So whether it's your bio and your referral letters or introductory letters, or if you're doing talks or whatever you might be doing, if you've got brochures out there, updating so that you've got those core things, then you'll find that it makes you stand out. It's easier to do because it's authentic, and people will start to sort of remember you in the right sort of way.
Totally. And I guess everything flows to the next thing, really, which is the third tip we have here is to optimize your digital front door. And by this, we really mean your online presence, which is really your website. So I think most of us would have heard stats about, the number of, or the percentages of patients that are influenced by what they see online, or finding you online, or at least influenced on what they see about you online. And even if you think most of your work might come from referrers, which are also really important, that your digital presence is equally as important for referrers too. So this is something that we definitely want to, have plenty of focus on. And so the same sort of thing, ask yourself, does your website, really communicate the quality and the clarity of care that you offer? Does it really communicate what you're trying to get across? Like if you ask a few people, ideally outside your industry, what is this really saying? What do you do? Who do you help? How do you book? Those types of simple questions, which you might find obvious because you've been looking at your website all the time and, you just click here. Just check that other people find it equally obvious. And websites don't need to be expensive. There's lots of great ways to do it without much investment at all. And yeah, what was I going to say? Just include a few more things about, having a decent about us section. Like people think, oh, no one's very interested in us, but they are actually. They want to know who they're going to work with. They feel like, you're going to be some sort of a partner with them, and they want to know who they're going to be working with. So whether it's just you and your background and specialties, or it's your team, talk about all that. Talk about the types of services you offer, the types of conditions or issues you treat, or patient types, that kind of thing. Obviously, contact details, opening hours. Put some images of your premises or your clinic or where you work up there too, so they can actually visualize themselves having services with you. Also a list of FAQs, frequently asked questions, that you can keep adding to over time, that, if people are asking you these things when they're on the phone or they're coming to you for the first time, chances are that they're also asking them, they'd like to know those things when they're looking at your website. So, just keep adding to those so that you can help them and give them more confidence, remove those barriers to them coming to you. And also, of course, tell people why you are passionate about your practice services and the services you provide. Like, what makes you excited? How are you having that impact? And of course, don't forget to empower your clients by giving the option to book online and manage their account online with your Zanda client portal. We've got some new functionality and branding stuff coming very soon with that too. So we're pretty excited about that. But, that is another great way that you can just have people book straight away from, just take that extra step out of it for them. They don't have to pick up the phone or wait till it's, opening time and you're available.
Yeah.
So this is, if you're going to invest in one area of marketing, I would suggest you're, putting a bit of time and sometimes money, but usually not a lot of money, into building a really good website.
Yeah. That was very important for our practice as well. Like when we started, it was quite a few years ago, that people often didn't even have websites, and it was really like, it cost us at that time, like you can do it very cheaply now, but at that time it cost quite a lot. But one of the reasons that, I think the practice grew so quickly and we, sustained it, was that just those basics that you were just talking about there, like we did those consistently, and we made sure we didn't have like old content. So if you start a blog post for blog at one point, and then you kind of forgot about it and you don't really care about it anymore, you're better off removing that stuff off your blog, off your website, right? Because nothing says like old and uncared for, right? The other thing I would say is check your like copyright at the bottom. Like often that gives you a clue that a website's not really being maintained. If you got a copyright at the bottom that says like 2015, right, or something crazy, it just sends a message. Like, so just having those sort of like basic front door hygiene kind of things with this, like making sure that it's cleaned up and get other people to look at it, super important, and makes a big difference. Okay, so now I just want to jump in there. Okay, let's look at revisiting and nurturing your referral network. So I would argue that your referral network is often represents some of the most significant value that you actually have in your practice, because it's those people that you've built trust with that actually send you business that allows you to do everything else, right? If your referral network dries up, that's not so good, right? You're going to run into trouble fairly quickly. So thinking about when's the last time that you kind of did follow up with them, and making sure that you're consistently sending acknowledgement and thank you letters, that where it's appropriate, you're updating on treatment outcomes, or even the things like where a referral is made, but the person never turns up or you're not able to engage them, making sure that the experience from the referrer's end is positive, and that you're keeping them updated and informed. That the feedback that we've gotten both, in private practice ourselves, and then also getting a lot of exposure to practices around the world through Zanda, is that nurturing relationship and keeping that communication going makes a huge difference in the way that that referrers perceive the people that they refer to.
I think it says a lot. It's not just all those touch points again. It's just reminding them of you. It's showing that you care. It's showing that you're professional. It really, they're simple things to do, but they really mean a lot.
Yeah, and I think doing that even when you're hopefully your practice is flooded with referrals and you've got too many to handle. There's a tendency, I've seen this with practice in the past, that they tend to take their referrers for granted because they've got so much. They're more focused on managing wait lists and things, but business ebbs and flows, right? And maintaining it when you're really busy actually takes more discipline, but is just as important as doing that when you're not so busy or still sort of building up. The other thing, to do is to re-engage past referrers, and so people have dropped off, so you can use Zanda, or if you're using another practice management system, you may be able to sort of run a report like you can in Zanda, and you can pick up referrers that have referred in the past but then haven't referred recently, and just re-engaging them with a letter or an update or a check-in to say, hey, this is what we're doing at the practice now, or just reminding them of the services that you offer, or a new update about new team member that's joined and so forth. Then you can really kind of nurture that and grow that network over time.
Yeah, and Zanda does make it very easy to send out, use templates to send out letters. We've got also on our website, we can include in some of the follow-ups from this webinar afterwards, links to some templates for introductory letters and referral feedback letters, those sorts of things, but they all make such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our tip number 5 is to step out of your comfort zone, or a little.
You have to, right? So this goes back to what we were saying before, so I won't reiterate too much on that, but we do need to, I think it's good for our growth, right? It's good for that growth mindset that we know is important in terms of sort of human progression, and we need to kind of always be looking for ways to improve. Certainly, my own journey to the things we're doing now involved a lot of stepping out of the comfort zone, and I think I've mentioned the story, like that. When I started doing, as part of my kind of reach out, I was, going and doing ended up with a regular segment on a national radio station. And that, was really important to me because I wanted to communicate and get the message sort of out there. But I'm naturally quite anxious about things like that, and especially in those days. And I would get so anxious before doing these segments. I would literally carry a plastic bag in my pocket in case I needed to, in case I was going to be sick, whilst actually, on the radio. And that was a level of kind of discomfort, but it was really important that I felt passionate, as Fiona was mentioning before, about sharing the things that you're passionate about. And I was really sort of passionate about demystifying psychology, making psychology accessible, educating people about psychology and how it can help them. And because that was really important, to me, I was like, okay, didn't feel I was very good at it at all, but they kept on asking me back, so I did it for 11 years or something crazy. So I don't think I ever got super good at it, but the comfort and just the enthusiasm and the natural interest I had in it, and I really wanted to educate people about it, even if I felt I wasn't presenting the most slick kind of way. That discomfort over time reduced and eventually, it got to the point where I really quite enjoyed it. And you still get a little bit of anxiety beforehand, but not to the sort of debilitating level that it was at the start. And I think most things that are worthwhile doing require pushing a little bit outside. So whether it's choosing a talk, webinar, blog post, interview idea, just make a plan to make it happen and try it. And if it doesn't work, or you think that's not for you, try something else. But just getting a start and get comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's plenty of memes and sayings about that, but I think we all know it. It's one thing to know and another thing to do it. So hopefully this might be the prompt that sort of gets you to try one of these things, or block up a little bit of time to try one of these tips. But that does bring us to the end of the tips and end of the talk about myths and realities, and we're hopefully that we have sort of shed some light on the way we think about marketing and marketing for health practices in particular. We do just want to sort of share a few resources and announcements. We have an ideas board within Zanda, so we really try to listen to customers and build the Zanda functionality and features are based on ideas from customers primarily. So, you know, the feedback that we get is really important to us. So if you have an idea for how you're using Zanda, how things that you would love to see in Zanda or things that you think could be improved, we'd love to hear from you on the ideas board there. Submit an idea. You know, we review everything. We obviously can't act on everything, but we look at the numbers that come through that and you know, prioritize our work based on that. And we are always, I hope you can see that we are always, you know, releasing and making improvements to the system. So if you have an idea, just go within the software to the help menu and then submit idea there. We also have an academy, which is relatively new. So this is also under the help menu. We've got courses on getting started. So this is perfect if you're just new to Zanda or if you've got new people joining, but also more advanced courses as well for if you want to get more out of Zanda. And then, of course, we've got Damien's book on the 9 secrets of successful health practices. So, you know, we've got that. We've got a link up there to, if you go to zandahealth.com/secrets, you can find information about that, or you can pick up a copy on Amazon as well. And lastly, yep, just some contact details. You can, of course, email us anytime. We're always at the end of the email. We try and respond quickly. We've got our website. You can also book a support call with us. So if you'd like to talk to a real person, you've got something that's not working for you, just book a call with one of us and, you know, we can talk to you. And the practice hype, hopefully people have discovered that, where we have new releases, information about all that. Sorry.
I was just going to say, just look for that little icon that you can see there, Practice Hive, in the very top of the of your account, and you'll actually be able to click through and you can see all the releases. So we put all the release notes in there, and you can stay up to date with all the new stuff that is happening. And when we enhance things, add new features, it all goes into there. That's been incredibly popular since we put that out. So check it out if you haven't already.
Well, and messaging within your team too. That's also there too.
Yes, it's a very good point. So I was so focused on thinking about releases and things. But yes, in the Practice Hive is where your own messaging so you can have internal. There is internal live in your account now ability to message between practitioners and between your admin team and so forth, and it's all encrypted. So it's encrypted to the same standards that we use for medical records and everything else. So it's different to if you're looking at like commercial things like Slack that are sort of standalone. They don't necessarily meet the standards to send health information. Where our inbuilt one that you can go in and start using now is compliant with all the things that it should be compliant with. Well, that's over to me to say thank you very much for attending. We hope we've sparked some ideas for you. And thank you, of course, Fiona, for joining today and sharing your expertise and perspective.
Yep. Well, I hope it was helpful and people feel that little bit less apprehensive about marketing.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you.